I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 229, Emotional Rest. If your husband is struggling with a pornography problem and you want some help with it and you are not finding the resources that you like, you are in the right place. My name is Jolene Wynn. I am a certified life coach. I am an active member of the LDS faith, and I am the wife of a former porn addict. And on this podcast, I am going to share with you the tools that you need in order to start your healing journey. This is where I'm going to show you how to dive deep into intentional living, how to rekindle connection with your spouse, how to manage all that emotional turmoil that you're feeling, how to break the addiction cycle that you have to your husband's addiction, and tell you all of the ways to do that and start healing. I am so glad that you're here, and I can't wait to get started. Let's go. Good morning, my ladies. How are you? I am so happy to be talking to you guys this morning. And I have been thinking about what it is that I wanted to talk about, and I am very excited to talk to you guys today about taking an emotional rest. But first, I wanted to remind you guys about a couple of things. Number one is this week is my retreat, and I am so excited. I am so thrilled for all of you guys who are coming. If you haven't signed up yet, you guys still can. It's this Thursday, the 17th to the 20th. I'm taking these women, this group of women, to the beach in North Carolina. We are going to do a 3-day in-person reset, and that is what I'm going to be teaching, how to emotionally reset. And I'm just excited to be spending the 3 days coaching and teaching and laughing and giving these women an opportunity to really come together and see that they're not by themselves. It's such a beautiful experience. I'm so excited. I have several people who are coming back for the third year in a row. This is my third retreat I've ever done, and I have several women who've come to all three. And then I have some that came last year that are coming back. It is going to be such a blast. I'm so excited about it. I did want to let you guys know that I am doing a free webinar, class, live event, whatever you want to call it, on October 23rd. So this is going to be next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And I will put the link in the show notes, which is where the summary is for, so it looks, when it comes up on your podcast app, it'll have the title, and then it has like a little description. In that description, right at the bottom of that description, I will put a link that you can just click on so that you guys can go sign up for it. And what I'm going to teach in this is how to stop being overwhelmed by your beautiful life. Because here's what happens is so many of you, as I talk to you and you guys reach out to me, you're so overwhelmed emotionally, so exhausted emotionally. We're going to talk about that a little bit today, but so tired emotionally. And yet the things that are making us so tired aren't necessarily things we can cut out, right? Because that's the number one thing that we do when we get really overwhelmed and tired is we start to cut out things, which I'm all for, okay? We start to say, okay, we're not going to do these activities anymore. Let's stop doing this. And we try to start limiting the things in our lives that are creating the overwhelm, right? However, sometimes the things that are creating the overwhelm aren't things that we can just delete or stop doing. It's like, all right, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by trying to support my husband in his job and he's really stressed. Or I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by being a parent and raising teenagers. But unless I just want to kick my teens out, this is not something that's going to go away in the next decade. That is what I'm going to be talking about. All the things that we want to keep in our life, even some of the things that we don't. If you're feeling overwhelmed, this is for you. Again, next Wednesday, October 23rd at 12 p.m. Eastern. I would love to see you there. I'll put that link and you can share it with your friends and let them know that this is going to be happening. And I'm going to teach you how to stop feeling overwhelmed by your life. Okay? So excited about that. All right, ladies, let's dive into today. Today's topic was inspired by myself and my need yesterday to give myself an intentional emotional rest. And this has been coming up as I have been thinking about things that I want to shift in my business. I let you guys know that a couple of podcast episodes ago about expanding and reaching more women and changing the podcast name and all of these things. And there's a lot that goes in on the back end, the business end of this. Totally fine. And as I have been stewing over this, I have felt a little stuck in a few questions of okay, how do I do this? How do I make this work? What changes do I need to make? And I have felt a little bit stuck. And what's been fascinating about this is that I have in feeling stuck, I was talking to my husband about this the other night, and he said, why don't you just take a pause? Why don't you just set this to the side for just a minute and not worry about it? Just focus on your retreat. Don't think about it during the retreat. Don't think about it when, until after your webinar. Like, let's just pause and just set this to the side. And what came up for me, the thought that I have, and tell me if this resonates with you, is the thought that I had was, I don't have time. I don't have time to pause. I don't have time to not worry about this, to not think about this, to not solve this problem. I need to solve this problem so that X, Y, and Z, right? So my brain said, I don't have time. I have to solve this problem. I have to find the solutions to these answers because I need to be able to get my business moving. I need to start bringing in some money. I need to, do X, Y, and Z. I have these goals that I want to hit. Otherwise, my husband's going to have to go back to work. Like, my brain starts going into how I do not have time to rest. I don't have time to even put this on pause. And I was so fascinated by this. And I sat yesterday morning as I woke up. It was Sunday. And I sat yesterday morning and I said to myself and to God, I started to pray. And I was like, all right, what's fascinating about Sunday is that even God took an entire day to rest. And he has set aside an entire day every single week to rest. That's what it's called. It's called a day of rest. And so yesterday, what I did in the morning, as I recognized that, I said, you know what? I am going to give myself permission today to rest, to not think and worry and try and solve these problems. And here's what's fascinating about all this. I'm going to dive into it more in just a minute. But one of the biggest reasons, ladies, that we don't allow ourselves to rest is that it feels irresponsible. And I've talked about this on a podcast episode before. I think it's called Permission to Relax, a couple hundred episodes ago. And I was talking about this, is that it can feel very, very irresponsible to allow ourselves to rest. Because, ladies, when we're talking about emotional rest, one of the reasons why we aren't resting emotionally is because we are worrying. One of the things that causes the most exhaustion, the most fatigue, and the most burnout is emotional worrying, is taking everything that's going on in our lives and just thinking about it over and over and over and over and over and trying to solve it in our heads. And ladies, that will cause you to burn out faster than anything else. Now, one of the reasons that we like to do this or that we keep doing it is that it feels very responsible. And we think that if we worry about something, then it means that we care about it. It's one of the biggest lies that we tell ourselves, or a misbelief. You can call it a lie, you can call it a misbelief. It's all the same, okay? I usually call them lies. It's a big lie that we believe, that if we care about something, we'll worry about it. And that we worry means that we care, right? So then if that's true though, then it means that if we don't worry about it, it means we don't care. And that's not true. There are so many things that we care about that we don't worry about. You don't have to worry about breathing, most of us, right? Unless you have some kind of medical problem. Most of us don't have to worry about breathing. And yet we care very much about the fact of whether or not we breathe, right? But we're not worried about it. Does this make sense? Now, again, our brain likes to keep the worry because it thinks that the worry is helpful. It thinks that the worry means that it's important to us and that we're paying attention to it. Ladies, I want to offer that it's possible for you to pay attention to something and care about something, and the worry doesn't have to be there. Now, what we have to do then is give our brains permission intentionally to rest from the worry. And sometimes that might look like saying stop to your brain. Literally, when it's in the middle of a thought, when it's in the middle of a worry pattern, we can just tell our brains stop. And one of the things I want to clarify about worry here is that, yes, there could be kind of an emotion attached to it, an anxiety. I feel worried. But usually when we feel worried, what we're actually just doing is just spinning in our thoughts. We're just spinning in our brain. Our thoughts are just looping in kind of a spiral. And we're not actually solving anything. We're just thinking about it over and over. And that's the other thing I want you guys to notice about worrying, is that it really isn't productive. It feels productive, which is another reason why we like to keep it, right? That's the second reason, is that it feels really productive. One is it feels important. Two is it feels productive. It feels like if I just think about this enough, I will eventually find the solution. It will just come to me. But that's usually not what happens because we're not actually thinking in terms of solutions. We're not saying, okay, here's the problem and let me brainstorm solutions. What we're doing is saying this is a problem and here's why this is a problem and here's why it's always going to be a problem and here's why it's never going to go away and here's why it's really important to think about and here's when it's going to happen if I stop thinking about it. And we're not actually finding the solution. We're just like stressing around it, right? That's what worry is. And I want to offer that we just let all of that go. And again, ladies, it's going to take some intentional focus and practice because most of us do not give ourselves permission to take a rest. That's number 3. Most of us do not give ourselves permission to stop worrying, to stop feeling whatever overwhelm and exhaustion that we're stuck in. Most of us do not give ourselves permission to stop the exhaustion. And that's what I want to offer to you today, to give yourself permission to let go of the worry and rest. Now, I want to go over the definition of rest for just a second because it was super fascinating as I brought this up, is that rest is a verb, ladies. It is not something that just happens. It's not a thing. It is an action. You have to intentionally create rest for yourself. Now, ladies, we aren't super good at doing this emotionally. Physically, we're a little bit better because our bodies can only take so much. Now, our emotional self is exactly the same way. Eventually, you will burn out emotionally. But physically, what happens is at the end of every day, we need to have some kind of sleep, right? In a 24-hour cycle, most of us have to sleep at least a little bit. Most of us have varying number of hours. I love to sleep. I require a lot of sleep. I'm good at running on not a lot of sleep. I mean, I had a lot of babies in a lot of years, very fast, and they didn't sleep through the night, and it was tiring. But I can get through it. But if I have a choice, I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock, and I don't get up until 6. Like, I'm a solid 8-9 hour sleeper, and it's amazing, okay? My mom can run on 3 hours of sleep for like a year. She doesn't need a lot of sleep. It's amazing, okay? Some of us need more rest than others. But what happens is our body will physically start to shut down, okay? We will start to get sick. If we sit down for a second, our brain will just shut off and our eyes will close all on their own because our body knows that it needs rest in order to rejuvenate, okay? Now, I want to talk about this emotionally, okay? I want to apply this emotionally to emotional rest. You have to intentionally stop in order to relax. And that's the thing, okay? So the definition of rest is a verb, right? Is to cease work or movement in order to relax. There has to have that intention behind it. It's not just stopping work for just a minute. That's just a pause. There's a reason I didn't call this emotional pausing. I called it emotional rest, okay? This is why, because you have to intentionally give yourself permission to cease the worry, cease the overwhelm, stop whatever it is you're stressing about in order to relax. This is why yesterday worked so well for me because at the beginning of the day, I set an intention and I said, I am going to give myself permission to rest. And that was actually the word that I used. I'm going to give myself permission to rest from this worry, to rest from the thought patterns that feel really important, to recognize that this isn't going to be solved, that it's not important, that it still matters to me, but I don't have to sit here and worry about it. I'm allowed to rest. And then I did things that make me feel rested. I painted my nails. I went to church. I had dinner with my family and intentionally focused when I was at church. This is something new, ladies, is I intentionally focused on what was being said, on the messages, on receiving whatever message God wanted me to hear. And it was very powerful. I didn't get on social media yesterday. I rested intentionally. And that's what my intention was, right? Was in order to relax. So number one, ladies, you have to intentionally stop whatever is worrying you. It's to intentionally stop whatever is creating the exhaustion. And then you have to intentionally relax and do things that make you feel relaxed. Because if we just stop, let's take this physically, for example. If I just stop running, okay, but I just keep moving, it doesn't mean that I'm relaxing, okay? I'm not rejuvenating my muscles. I'm not like taking protein. I'm not icing. I'm not getting in an ice bath. I'm not rejuvenating my muscles. I'm not relaxing. I'm just stopping running. Same thing emotionally. There's two parts to it. It's stop the worry and then give yourself permission to relax, which might look like intentionally doing things that relax you. What relaxes you? Is it taking a nap? Is it taking a bubble bath? Those types of things, listening to certain kinds of music, not doing chores for a day. Like, what is it that makes you feel truly relaxed? And then give yourself permission to do it. Maybe it's sitting outside in the sun. Okay? Give yourself permission to do the things that relax you. And again, emotional rest is crucial because what happens is we just keep treading water. This is something I'm going to be doing with my women at the retreat. So many of us are just emotionally treading water. We're just trying to stay afloat. And ladies, one of the reasons why we are doing this, and one of the reasons why this is so exhausting, is because we are resisting so much of the emotion that we have trapped inside. It's like we're just treading our emotions. It's like we've got buckets and buckets and buckets that have overflowed inside us, buckets of emotion. All the emotional baggage from all the years has now turned into an ocean, and we are just trying to manage to stay above water. That's what it's like. And ladies, what I want to offer in this emotional rest, this intentional emotional rest, is that you start to allow yourself to feel the emotion and float. Most of us are so scared of what's under the water, so scared of the emotion that comes up that we just try to shove it back down. If you think of that beach ball that I'm always talking about, we're just trying to shove the beach ball down. The more you try and shove this beach ball down, ladies, the harder it gets, the more exhausted you feel. And that's when you burn out and get exhausted. And that's when your brain says, I can't do this anymore. We've got to find another solution. Circumstances have to shift or I'm going to drown, right? Ladies, that's not true. The only thing that needs to shift is you emotionally. That's it. And sometimes that emotional rest, ladies, will come as soon as you stop resisting all that emotional baggage as it comes up. When you know how to handle that emotional baggage, that's when the rest is possible. If you don't know how to do that, then you're going to be treading water for a really long time until eventually your muscles do give out. I want to teach you, ladies, how to float, how to let that beach ball just sit in the water, to stop resisting it, stop shoving it down, stop pushing it away, to give yourself permission to rest. And maybe that looks like coming and learning how to process your emotions. I did this last week. I had a client sign up just a week ago, and she came on a call last week, and we processed emotions for the first time. And she was like, I have never done anything like that before, which is the number one comment that everyone has when they come and they learn how to do this with me. Because that is the game-changing thing, is most of us think that we're processing our emotions, and we're not. We are just reacting to them. We're crying about them. We are shoving them down, and we are powering through until we give out. And I want to offer, ladies, that your rest is going to be so much more powerful. The emotional rest that you take intentionally before you reach the point where you just explode. Okay, where it's the straw that breaks the camel's back, and you just can't take it anymore, and you have a breakdown. Okay, when you have an emotional breakdown, that kind of a rest isn't really rejuvenating. It's necessary, okay? It's kind of the rest that you get after you have a newborn and you haven't slept in like 4 days and you finally crash and sleep for 3 hours. It's like, great, but all it's doing is getting you back to the place where you're functioning. I want to offer that you give yourself permission to rest in a way that rejuvenates you. And after you take that intentional rest, after you stop what's worrying you, after you stop the worry, stop the patterns, and intentionally relax, then I want to offer that you reset so you don't go back to the same patterns as before. Because if you go back to the same patterns of worry, if you allow your brain to go back to the same patterns that you needed a break from in the first place, you're just going to end up back in the same scenario. You have control over your brain, but you have to give yourself permission to rest. Maybe that looks like calling in a babysitter. Maybe that looks like hiring a coach. Maybe that looks like taking a weekend away with your spouse. Maybe that looks like going on a women's retreat. What does that look like for you? What sounds restful? And again, ladies, it's not just about taking a physical break, which I'm all for. Sometimes we need that physical break in order to make the emotional break, but it's also about taking that emotional rest and then resetting so that you don't just get stuck again in the same patterns. Does this make sense? Give yourself permission to rest, ladies. Let me give you guys one last example of this that came up for me this week. It's why I wanted to talk to you about this. Emotionally, as you guys know, over the last couple of years, after my husband worked through his pornography problem, my husband struggled with what came up as he shared that he had some attraction to other women and was struggling with that and had some feelings for other women. And as we've worked through that and he's figured that out and is beyond that now, it came up for me a couple of times over this last week. There were just a few instances where the same, a little bit of emotion that I hadn't yet processed came back to the surface. And I found myself wanting all of it to go away. Sound familiar? I was just like, man, how long is this going to be here? How long am I going to have to deal with this? How many times is this going to come up before it's finally gone? And all of those thoughts, ladies, are just resistance. All of that is just trying to shove the beach ball underwater. And for a couple of days, I kind of swam around it. Then I kind of just worried about it. And I kind of tried to pretend like it wasn't there. And finally, when I just acknowledged it and I voiced to myself, and I did talk to my husband about it, when I voiced to myself and my husband, and I acknowledged and accepted what was coming up for me, that's when I was actually able to rest from it. And I recognized that one of the reasons why my brain doesn't want to rest from this emotional stuff, from the story of the past, is because it feels like if I let it go, ladies, I've heard you say this so many times, is that it's condoning all of it, or it's pretending it didn't happen, or that it wasn't a big deal. That's really the thought for me, was like, if I let this go, if I stop worrying about this, if I actually process this last little bit of emotion and I let it go, then I'm afraid that it means that it wasn't a big deal. I'm afraid that it means that it's not a problem, right? Sound familiar? And that's why my brain wants to worry. My brain wants to keep the emotional baggage. It wants to keep the hurt. It wants to keep the pain, even though it knows that that means that if I have the pain and the hurt shoved down there, it's going to get triggered by something. And then I'm going to be all annoyed that I'm struggling with this, that it's coming back up to the surface. And even though I logically say I don't want it there, emotionally I do. Emotionally, I want to worry about it. Emotionally, I want to keep the fear. Emotionally, I don't want to let it go. Why? Because I'm afraid of what it means if I do. And that's really why our brain gets stuck in these patterns of worry, is because of what we make it mean. What would it mean if I let this go? What would it mean if I stopped worrying about this? The question that I've been sitting with for the last 2 days was, what if I allowed this to be neutral? It's been a fascinating question. Not his behavior. Ladies, don't jump up, okay? I'm not saying his behavior is neutral. What if I allowed the women that he had feelings for and the women he was attracted to? What if I allowed those women in my life to be neutral? Oh my gosh, so much has come up. What if I give myself permission to rest from this experience? How long am I going to keep this with me? How long am I going to keep this emotional baggage with me and tread it and just try to keep my head above it? How long? Because the only person that hurts is myself. It does also hurt my husband a little bit when I bring it up, but he's totally loving and wonderful and compassionate about it. He's totally fine. And he's like, it's okay. These women don't have to be neutral. I totally get it. Maybe they shouldn't be neutral. And he's trying to offer me all these thoughts, but it's been fascinating for me to sit with that question. What if I allow them to be neutral? Again, not his behavior, but the women. Why do I need to hold on to the story? Why do I need to have them labeled a certain way? Why do I need to have them labeled in my brain as unsafe? And what if it's not true? Again, the reason why my brain wants to keep that story and wants to perpetuate these ideas these patterns is because it thinks that worrying about it will somehow keep me safer in the future. That not worrying about it means that it wasn't a big deal, and none of that is true. So ladies, yesterday I gave myself permission to rest, and I want to offer you guys the same permission to stop worrying and also intentionally allow yourself to relax. Do the things that relax you. And then, ladies, the real trick to this, the real key here, so that you don't just go right back into it, is what are you going to do? What do you need in order to change and reset so you don't go back into the same patterns? All of that, ladies, just as a big, giant, I don't know what the word is. I guess it's a spoiler alert. The spoiler alert here, ladies, is it's all internal. Come work with me. I will teach you how to let go of that emotional baggage, to process it, to let it go, to retrain your brain so that you don't get right back into those same patterns. I love you, ladies, so much. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if this resonated with you, come to that workshop that I am doing, the live event that I'm doing next Wednesday on how to stop feeling overwhelmed. I will help you there. Come join my program and work with me. I will work with you one-on-one so that we can actually get you through this. Now is the best time to join. Ladies, the lifetime access is going away January 1st. So join now. You'll be grandfathered in. You'll get lifetime access. Join before January 1st so that you, before it changes to an annual membership. Now is the best time to get in. I love you, ladies. I will see you guys next week on a brand new episode. So take care. All right, ladies, if you enjoyed this podcast, then I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take everything on the podcast and we actually get to apply it in order to transform your life. And I know that that is a big promise, but it's 100% true. On the podcast, it's like learning how to ride a bike. It's like reading a book, an instruction manual, via audio on how to ride a bike. And my coaching program is where you actually ride the bike. And that is what creates the transformation. This is what actually enables you to go from point A to point B, to actually create the transformation that you are seeking. If you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling like you are loving everything, but you just can't see the end from where you are now, then I want to help you. Come work with me one-on-one. I have a lifetime access program, which means it doesn't expire. You come work with me. I will help you every step of the way and work with you personally to make sure that you get where you want to go. I can't wait to see you there. Head to my website today, jolenewind.com, and sign up.